we're live. Here we are.
Live.
All of us.
Live from not New York.
I guess we are still in recovery from D23, those of us who were there in person and those of us who were supporting back at the news desk. But we thought we'd get together and kind of share some of the highlights. What you got to say, Mr. Ben?
So I'm so tired.
Okay, well, by way of introduction, first off, let me say that up there, that's Ben. Over there, that's Kyle. Over there, that's Luke. I'm Rebecca. Now you can have your say, Ben.
It was interesting because it was a lot. I mean, going inside LP for a minute, like we have a lot to do there. We have a lot to do there, like meeting people and interviews and panels and logistics. And then Kyle and Doobie were handling the booth, thankfully. So I just would make cameo appearances and be like, "You guys good?" Okay. And then, the show floor was bigger this year, so it took they went, since there was no Hall D23, the show floor actually went into Hall D, and then everything seemed a little more compressed because with the Honda Center, if you were going to that, you basically had to leave the show floor, 2 hours before it closed on Friday and Saturday, and 4 hours on Sunday. So you left. There was just not a lot of time, and a lot of as I said, Alex did an unboxing. We interviewed doll creators. We did booth tours and just met up with partners. So it was a lot of work. But so this weekend, I was like, okay, well, I'm going to go through everything that they announced and kind of plan out our year. And it's interesting because on the studio side, there weren't a whole lot of announcements. There was new trailers and things. And then on the park side, I think we got one opening date. We got November 15th for Chad's Bayou Adventure. And the rest is, obviously hasn't even started construction, or not significantly, not vertical construction. So
that's a lot of the info we got was when they're starting construction instead of when it's opening. So if you look at our project tracker, a lot of them say starting in 2025 instead of opening in 2029.
Yeah, and
which definitely gives them a lot more flexibility.
Yeah, and we know they're spending $60 billion over 10 years, which a significant portion of that's now going to be cruise ships, which is great in one regard because the cruise line's a fun product, but at the same time, it's not as exciting as like major new attractions opening. The cruise lines. I don't know. They're not as accessible. You don't have like construction updates all the time. You don't have that sort of build up. And they've been doing so many of them. It's almost become sort of, I don't want to say mundane, but like,
it's even hard to keep track of because I completely forgot that the Disney Adventure is going to be opening next year in addition to the Disney Destiny. And before we get to all of that, we got the Disney Treasure too. So that's, a lot.
Well, that's why the only thing that's bothering me about it is anytime we or Disney writes an article, it says Disney's newest ship. It's like, no, we need to choose different words. We need to have one newest ship and then figure out what we call the rest.
Disney's forthcoming ship.
Well, it's interesting because it's like, you're right, because I don't remember a time where we knew so much about a ship before the previous ship had launched. Even if you take the adventure out of it, which is a little bit of a different animal, keeping the Destiny and Treasure straight in my head is a little hard because, one, there's not a huge difference in theme, but also, I haven't been inside the Treasure to know, to feel like I've seen those so that I know the Destiny is coming.
Hey, Nina, maybe Nina. Hi. Okay, so with that in mind, I'm curious, Luke, you were on our news desk while the three of us were kind of there at the event. Coming away from D23, what are you what got you most hyped? Whether it's a new announcement or something that you already knew about, but maybe learn more about. Was there something that you left D23 kind of more excited about or interested in, or?
Yeah, I mean, going into it, we were all, cautiously optimistic, I would say, about specifically for parks, and hoping that there would be a decent number of announcements, and that they would be, concrete things as opposed to the blue sky, which we had gotten so used to. And I think they delivered. I personally, I don't know exactly which one I'm the most excited for. I kind of,
You could pull up your tier list, and then we could see that you put like 8 things as S tier.
Right?
You are right. I did put 8 things as S tier, and
And can we clarify for those who are old what S tier is?
well, yeah. So Kyle, you might have a better way of
Somehow I had to
explaining it,
talk Luke
but
into doing this tier list. Like he acted like he'd never seen one. I was like, "Is this what you're talking about?" I'm like, "Yes." So S tier, I think it's an anime thing, like God tier above A tier even. So yeah, there's also debate on whether you have an E tier, whether it goes D F like in school or whatever. But yeah, so I made Luke do a tier list, and he put like everything at the top. Which hey, whatever. He's that hype for it.
and you know what? I'm attempting right now to show everyone said tier list. So please, vamp
Sure it's
while I bring
coming.
that up.
Are you guys excited about this Villains Land? I mean, this has been, for those of you who are as old as I am, this has been kind of a rumored, we for a while there were thoughts that maybe a Villains Park would be a fifth gate. I mean, as far as just like theme park Disney villains, it's been rumbled about for decades. And so now we finally have been told it is coming. So are you suitably pumped for this? Ben?
Well,
This has been a rumor since I was in like junior high.
Like I said,
In like
when I was starting the internet.
yeah, like I expect them to announce Fire Mountain and Cave Technology now. Like and so I'm excited, and it's somewhat like Little Mermaid was kind of the same boat. It's like rumored, and they finally built it, and it was it was fine. But it was between this and Monsters Land with the coaster, which was
The door coaster.
yeah, which we've heard about since I think that movie came out, and then I'm pretty sure when everyone saw Iron Man, they're like, oh, that's the sum of all thrills, and so like nothing here, and maybe that's a good thing, but nothing here is like whoa, like where did they come up with that idea? With the exception of maybe Cars and Rivers of America.
I do want to point out that Luke has the Kuka arm attraction over the King Thanos attraction, so that's just fundamentally wrong.
so I didn't necessarily put any of these in like any specific order in the tier, but like Kyle was saying, it's kind of like God tier, and then this is amazing, and then I have some questions about this, and then it's getting to the stuff like Fortnite, for example. I don't play Fortnite. I don't really know anything about Fortnite, so that was like 20 minutes where I could just shut off.
I'm excited about it.
Actually, you'd write the last article. You didn't shut off.
Well, yes.
I'm excited about it because I feel like this is an avenue for me into Fortnite, something I was not at all interested in, yet somehow is a I don't want to say franchise, but a brand that's like globally popular. And now I feel like, hey, maybe there's a way that I can kind of get my foot in the door that connects with me, because I'm not a Fortnite type person.
But can I go on my little soapbox about not so much Fortnite, but the Epic Games partnership?
Sure.
I thought it was wise for them to transition from the cruise line to the Epic Games partnership. Whatever it is going to be, that's going to be, because despite the cruise line was sort of a niche business with 2 cruise ships that they just put I don't want to say they just put Disney, but they tried to do a Disney version of it, and then it became a business in its own right. And Disney, despite its I don't say its best efforts, but with its lackluster efforts, has tried to get into video game space since, once again, I was in junior high. And if this is actually them making inroads into a new Disney experience, yeah, I mean, it's not real world, so it doesn't have the same scope as a real world experience will. I get that. But if it can create more Disney avenues in the same way regional entertainment did not, or, Mickey's Kitchen, or all those other things that Disney tried that didn't work, it's nice to see them try to do something new with their brand in order to maybe bring Disney in your life in new ways, in a way Disney Channel did back in 1983.
Now, Ben and I were in the arena for this event, and I don't know if you noticed, Ben, but the couple behind us were kind of running commentary throughout the event, and it was delightfully cranky at times. And
What? Disney fans cranky?
It crossed over into annoying. Okay, so wait,
hold up. My favorite, before you go there, my favorite was when this was announced. It was like, how's this any different than Disney Infinity? Didn't we just go through this? Didn't we just do this already? That I just thought it was really funny.
When those people started driving me crazy, it was not during that, but it was when they would start mocking Disney legends.
Well, no, yeah. Well, that was a different. I'm talking.
Oh yeah, I forgot that because of assigned seating, you guys had the same people behind you, so that must have been fun. Looking forward to the next night.
I see. I didn't have a good earshot of them. I don't know.
I didn't catch the Disney Legends stuff. I just heard this stuff during the part, and so that just cracked me up. And it's one of the things. Honestly, one of the things that I don't usually go to the big arena. I was telling Ben, I don't know that I've been to every D23. I think this might have been my first time going to a parks like presentation, because I like to see what's happening now, and I like to learn about what's happening now from the people who are doing it now. And there's so much of that going on that I don't want to take the time away usually to invest in getting a spot or getting a seat for, these large panels. But this year with the Honda Center, Ben asked me, hey, would you want to go? And I'm like, I'll give it, I'll give it a try. And I'm glad I went, but honestly, I think moving forward, I'm back where I was. I would have much rather had that time on the show floor and hearing from the people who are currently doing than hearing about what's moving forward. It was a good show, by the way. I mean, as far as just what the Honda Center was, I was surprised and impressed. First of all, from the people I talked to, getting there, getting back was not as much of a nightmare as many had been concerned and anticipated. There's going to be a challenge anytime you've got 12,000 people descending on a singular location and 12,000 people leaving that singular location.
I think it's AT&T now.
But overall, it went, went okay. And
speaking of junior high school.
But then the show itself, I think they could benefit maybe from tightening it up moving forward. I know Benji was there all 3 nights, and having it be that long every single day, I think kind of wore. I noticed that there was a lot of people who, as things were wrapping up, were bolting for the doors because they were just, I got to beat the crowd. I got to get out of here. So, and then the other thing for me, regarding the arena, it's wonderful to be there surrounded by all the fellow Disney fans, and the energy in the room. I hope it comes across in like the videos and stuff, and they have you wear these bands that light up so you are kind of part of the show and all of that. The warm-up show beforehand, I was not a fan of. It just didn't have the energy that I was looking for when I entered the arena, and it could have been
talking about the Mad Tea Party thing.
No, that was actually like the show, but before the show, they had kind of, I would call them like a hype crew, and it was like a couple of DJs on the stage, and then
the show before the show, but not the show before the show.
Yeah, and then like a couple of gals who would be out in the stands asking people trivia questions, and you win prizes. And then a lot of that, hey, section 200, let me hear you scream. Hey, section 400, let me hear you scream. A lot of that stuff. And I don't know, it just didn't.
$2,000 seats. Let me hear you.
It didn't work. It didn't work for me. And as I looked around the room, I didn't get the impression that a lot of people were engaging in it, really. So, but it's one of those things.
Yeah, they were bad. Okay, so I'm trying to think how I can phrase this without getting in trouble. But so the studios was supposed to be 2 hours, and then it ended up being about 3 hours. And I don't mind the length it's not so much the time, it's how you pace it, and how you it can be 3 hours, but like Avengers Endgame, it can be 3 hours and good, but it just needs to keep, it needs to keep the energy up. So then the next morning when we got our briefing about the parks presentation, like, yeah, it's going to be a tight 2 hours. Like, okay. And I kid you not, it went 3 hours. And then Legends, and the parks was scheduled for 90 minutes. And then the Legends,
really?
2 hours ended up being 3 hours. So,
but I mean, I think this is a thing that has plagued them for many past D23s. It always ends up running over.
Yeah, I just don't know why they don't start that. Like, I mean, I don't think anyone really had a problem with it being 3 hours. It was more of the
plan. But when you settle
for
yourself in for 2 hours,
right? Yeah, and maybe you can, you're planning. You're like, okay, well, I gotta go potty. Like, okay, I only got 30 minutes to go. I'll hold it, and then you're like, oh no,
That's like when you're stuck on the tarmac on an airplane.
Frankly, if it is going to be that long, an intermission would not have hurt. You might as well just add another 20, 30.
Studios had that. Studios had an intermission. It was called Snow White.
I didn't go to studios. I went to parks and to Legends. I stuck at the convention center for the Disney Princess concert because I love Disney princesses. It was awesome, by the way. And once again, it was one of those things, I had put that in as my RSP. You could put in ahead of time what you wanted. I didn't get it. And I could have walked it. It seemed like I could have walked in at showtime and had a seat without an issue. I got there, I want to say like 45 before because I didn't want to not have a seat, but I could have come in later. And speaking of which, that's another weird thing that D23 does with seating is even when it's very clear based on the standby line and the queue, and I'm not talking Princess Concert, I'm talking like all the seminars, they very deliberately seat you. And these seats have not a wide pitch, to be frank. And it would be nice if it was a little bit more free flow, because I wouldn't have minded at some of these venues being able to pick a seat kind of off to the side or a few rows back or something where I wasn't like, just shoulder to shoulder with people and front and back. They like put you in as if they think every last seat is going to be filled and they need to be super efficient. And most of the time, I didn't find it to be such.
Yeah, I get it from I have two. One is, there's a point where it's clear it's not going to be that. When that point is realized, I'm not quite sure. Like there were things that did fill up.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you don't want to start with that, but when you have some idea of how many people are going to show up, it takes some nuance, which they probably just erred on the side of not doing, which is not the right answer, but I can see where they came from with it. And then, particularly given the past mistakes where, they let too many people in.
Okay.
So I get it. I don't agree, but I get it. But one of so for me, my first panel was the music of Marvel, and I didn't have any ticket or RSP for it, but I was like, okay, first thing, premiere stage, first day of D23, I'm going to do it. And they were very cautious about whether they were going to let standby in or whatever, and there was plenty of room. And so
did they let you in prior to the presentation starting?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
And I don't know if ever, I was pretty close to the front of the standby because I went there first thing, but I don't know if the people in the back, I would think based off of how fast they started getting, they did speed things up. Like when they could tell that there were, that it was going too slow, change the process to speed up the loading. But I never got turned away. Now I didn't, I had access through other means to some things. I had RSPs for some things, but I never got turned away, whether it was that or the Dick Sherman thing, which was my highlight of D23. I don't believe the name was technically the Dick Sherman thing. I think it was the Jolly Holiday tribute to Richard.
Jolly Holiday was the official panel name.
Yeah, but I was pleasantly surprised at how well they handled the crowds this time. I was not convinced based off of their poor decision-making process leading up to it that it was going to go that well. But when you actually got on site, I had no issues getting in. I had no issues getting into panels. I had no issues, now granted, I wasn't trying to do merchandise. It didn't matter if I was the first or third person. I will say I also had no problems getting into merchandise. Maybe not first day. I had no problem getting everything I wanted. I didn't try and do Lorcana, which I think was the big sort of problem child this year.
Mhm.
But
including by their own means of not knowing the artist's name to print on the card.
Yeah. So I was happily surprised, and I was wrong. I thought it was going to be a complete disaster because there was some odd choices made to begin with, and I do think that they still had some work to do getting people back from the Honda Center. I don't think that was. I did find out how many buses they had, and I think they were about 10 short to really have a smooth process based off of my experience. So
Benji would be the bus pro, by the way.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
I know.
Yeah, I was surprised. All in all, I will say my biggest disappointment was a lack of announcements on the studio side. I would have loved them to announce a big surprise, a big, get everyone excited. I don't think they said anything there besides perhaps. I mean, they had that Beaver movie, which was
Hoppers.
not. What's that?
Hoppers.
Yeah. That they announced. They also announced that Monster Jam movie, but I don't think any of those things were like super. Yeah,
They didn't even really say movie for Monster Jam. They gave so little info that I think my headline says experience, just in case, because that's the way he said it. Live action experience. I have no idea if it's a narrative movie or if it's like, GoPros in the front of monster trucks and you're going to watch it in an IMAX. I have zero clue.
Could just be a documentary. You never know.
That's wild.
Yeah, so I would have loved I can't Hocus Pocus 3 or even a Tron announced Bruce Boxleitner's actually in the movie or something like that, some big wow moment, kind of like they do typically at Comic-Con on the Marvel side. Is there's a surprise, and I know this is like the ultimate like experiential 1%er comment, but basically except for Agatha and Ironheart, the Marvel section was just basically a Cliff Notes version of their Comic-Con presentation. And in the past, it had been different. There was something different about it. And, so when they say only for you guys and 6,000 people last week too.
Well, this is twice as many. So now 3 times as many people as the Comic-Con crowd have seen it.
But Marshall would point out that they brought you Patti LuPone. And you are not appropriately respectful and appreciative of having been in the presence of that legend.
Did Aubrey Plaza make everybody real margaritas with Cointreau?
Patti LuPone is famous. Why?
I hope Marshall's not. Marshall just quit. I just got a DM.
Read Marshall's piece on how on it. I'm not going to.
Was Life Goes On that good?
Oh my head hurts. Okay. I'm sorry, Marshall. I apologize. This does not reflect the opinions and feelings on Patty from the entire LP administrative team. Just that guy over there.
I was going to say, leave me out of this.
I'm sorry. that one over there. Kyle, you were editor, so you tend to, kind of be on top of the breadth of stuff. Was there something that you were anticipating? What were your thoughts on D23? Something more you wanted? What was your highlight?
Well, I did get to go to one panel, so that was fun. I went to the Lorcana panel, and so I got to experience what that was like because I didn't have a reservation, so I waited on standby and luckily got in. Saw that I was not alone in the standby queue, as one of the top artists for Lorcana was also waiting in the standby line, and I recognized him because I interviewed him at Gen Con last year. So that was fun. They announced a lot of cool things, like Pixar is coming to the game in 2 years.
Oh, wow. Okay.
In 2026, they'll be adding Pixar franchises to that game. But I also gained a lot of appreciation because I am in it mostly for the art. So to know that there were levels to the game that I had never realized, kind of the different color. Like I knew that there were 6 different colors of cards, but I didn't realize that those were almost like Harry Potter houses, and the way that they actually do represent like the characters under them. There's a logic to it, and I never even caught on to that. So that was fun. My top announcement, I know it's old hat, but the Monsters Inc. agnostic of where it ends up going. The Monsters Inc. land. I'm a huge Monsters Inc. fan. It's my favorite Pixar movie. And I remember how excited I was just walking into the lobby of Monsters Inc. that they have as part of the queue for the Tokyo ride. And that was awesome. So being able to step into Monstropolis is going to be exciting. And also, I know it's been around forever, but seriously, I remember seeing Monsters Inc. in theaters, and that was the first time I had the thought of, oh, this is going to be a ride going through the door scene. So to finally see that come to fruition 20 years later, 25 years later by the time it actually opens.
30 years later by the time.
Yeah, that's exciting to me. As far as what else I was expecting, I mean, it's interesting how much little stuff. There's not like huge news that came out of these side panels, let's call it, for lack of a better term, the convention center panels. Mm-hmm. But I heard how much people enjoyed them, like the Jolly Holiday one. Everyone I know that went to that just like raved about it. And Jeremiah also really enjoyed the World's Fair one. That one had surprises, some that overlapped with the Jolly Holiday because they showed the Dick Sherman Iron Man 2 video. But yeah, it sounds like everyone had a lot of good things to say about the panels. Even, say what you will about getting into them, but once you got into them, they put on a good show. The only thing I heard in terms of complaints was that people wanted more giveaways at the panels. They said that seemed to be decreased from past years, which I have no experience with because I haven't gone to a panel in a decade at this point. I will say I got some free stuff from the Lorcano panel. So I got a promo card, so I didn't have to go try to buy something at the booth. I got a pin that was the same one that I got at Gen Con, and then they even gave us a little booster pack for the latest Lorcano release, Shimmering Skies.
Yeah, I think that I would agree that there was a bit of a downgrade as far as like those larger venue gathering giveaways overall. But you were at the booth on the show floor most of the time. What were some of your takeaways from being there? I know for those of you who haven't been to these events, typically the Emporium, which is where kind of all that fan affiliate dynamic,
the affordable booths.
Yeah, it's not the Roosevelts or the Hulu or whatever. And so they kind of put us all together off in some space together. This year we were directly across from a nice relaxing oasis set up by AT&T, but we were on the far side. So easy to find you guys, by the way. It was wonderful this year. Last year, I kept getting lost on my way back to the booth, but this time I found you very easy to find.
Well, I mean, because we started to figure out how you tell people where to get to your booth, and some of the bigger vendors need to figure that out. Like your booth number means absolutely nothing to anybody because it doesn't. There's nothing that has that information. You need to go off of the column or row, depending on how you look at it, numbers. But no, the booth was busier. Even though the show floor was bigger, I will say a lot of people felt, and I don't know whether or not this is accurate, but it felt like the Emporium was maybe half the size of what it has been in some previous years. But our location ended up being quite busy. We had a lot of people stopping by. We went through all of our fans, meaning we held these fans that we gave away. We went through 1,000 of those. We had some celebrities of both in the Disney fan variety and actual celebrities stop by. We had them sign our banner, which you guys have. Don Hahn, Leonard Maltin, Josh D'Amaro. So that was a lot of fun getting people to sign that.
So was that your list of actual celebrities?
Those were the real celebrities.
Okay.
Yeah, no, we
had a lot
I'm not going to share the MVP and LVP, but we chose an LVP for
our colleagues, what I would call our colleagues. A lot of them stopped by, and that was very sweet. And they would sign our banner as well. So it was cool.
But yeah, there was a lot of excitement. And we had Margaret Carey next to us, who also signed the banner. She had a big line the whole most of the day every time she was there.
Okay.
So yeah, even though the Emporium felt smaller, it seemed like people were still finding their way to that back of Hall A and enjoying their time there.
For those of you who don't know, who are watching, Margaret Carey was the physical model that the animators would look at to draw Tinkerbell. She would, kind of act out scenes, and they used her mannerisms, her physique to
Mocap
inspire
before mocap.
Tinkerbell. And she is in her 90s. I want to say mid 90s.
She's 95.
And she was there doing 6-hour shifts at her booth.
She is, as you can imagine, the fact that she was the reference model for Tinkerbell, she is a petite woman too.
Yes. But her dynamic nature, she is a powerhouse of a lady. And just having her nearby I put this up on my socials. I leave D23 on such a high. I leave it because so much of the messaging throughout the event is about facing failure, be willing to step out of your comfort zone, be willing to embrace something new. And you hear all these stories over and over again about from these people who you just have such admiration for in the creative field. And they are vulnerable at this event. There's something about this event that brings out a vulnerability. Miley Cyrus was particularly vulnerable in accepting her Legend Award.
We got to see her unedited version.
They didn't edit it. What are we talking?
Did they not cut out the part about her?
No, YouTube did. Disney Legends YouTube did, but not Disney Plus, is my understanding.
Even the D23 thing that I've seen on YouTube, it hasn't been edited. I haven't seen an edited version of anything.
Okay. So, but just like I say, over and over again, so many of the legends as they were accepting talked about the challenges, the realities of, hey, you could be a legend too. You just got to keep going. You got to keep doing. Even when you fall down, keep doing. If you're scared to do something, do it anyway. So I left, as always, with those projects that have been shelved, kind of, picking them back up again and looking at them again and moving forward. That's always how I leave D23. It's what I love about D23.
The Chumbawamba principle.
Yes.
Going back to parks, I agree. I mean, first of all, I agree 100% with Rebecca. But going back to parks, I don't think it's appreciated enough that every one of those projects is site specific. So even like Avatar is a different Avatar experience. Indiana Jones, which despite the fact it's the same track as California, will be a different experience. For all those talk about, lifting attractions, which, sometimes makes sense. Not one of those attractions they announced is expected to be duplicated anywhere else.
And that was a very common thing for a while. You saw Toy Story replicated, you saw Galaxy's Edge, you saw a few other things, Tron. But yeah, no, that was something I definitely picked up on in watching and seeing all the announcements come in, that it was exciting to see these things that were like, even Shanghai and Hong Kong are both getting a Spider-Man attraction, but they're two completely different, or at least it seems like they're two completely different Spider-Man attractions.
And that's what I want to ask you guys. Do you think that this is an indicative of a mindset shift where, because I think before we often thought of it as, well, it's cheaper to build two, right? Was the notion.
It is cheaper to build two. I mean, there's no question.
But if it makes people less apt to visit two, then is it really cheaper to make two?
Well, I mean, it's still cheaper, whether it's
what I mean.
But I think there's also a line to walk where, woohoo! Thanks for joining, Doobie.
Use your special emoji.
There's a line to walk where, sort of they decide when Magic Kingdom was open, they're like, oh no, we're not going to build pirates. We're going to build something new and different. And everyone's like, no, we want pirates. And I think Mickey's Runaway Railway works at both, and there's times when it makes sense and there's, queue adjustments and things like that. I will say the unique attractions are oftentimes ride systems that we've seen used. They're just different, so what it's, instead of it being Tower Terror, it's a Spider-Man Tower Terror. Instead of it being, Pirates of the Caribbean, it is Pandora Pirates of the Caribbean. So Shanghai's version. So I think, it's not always, I think, in everyone's best interest to not duplicate things, but it's nice to see that it's not a mandate, that they have that option to to do it when it makes sense and not just do it. I think Toy Story Mania was kind of a low point where it made sense in Paradise Pier at the time, but shoehorning it into Hollywood Studios wasn't really, they made it work, but it wasn't as obvious, and probably could have done something else and could have had that Monsters coaster a long time ago without getting rid of whatever they're going to get rid of.
During the earnings call, they talked about how, in as terms of like domestic parks being down a bit, is how like for people that make less, they're feeling kind of pressure and can't really go to the parks, whereas people who have enough money aren't going to the domestic parks, they're going to the international ones. So do you think that's also part of it? Is that it feels like, for lack of a better term, Disney fans these days are a little bit savvier and more interested in going to the international parks and figuring out how to do it instead of it just being like a pipe dream.
Well, I don't think they said
like
that
a lot of the Disney fans I know
I think they were
are
traveling internationally, so they were going to sites,
right.
going.
But I think they're also going to international parks while they're there in some cases.
Well, I mean, there's also exchange rate implications, but I think particularly, I still think Hong Kong and Shanghai are not as accessible to the American audience. You don't hear a lot of people going there, whereas you're starting to hear more and more people going to Disneyland Paris.
Except our team.
Yeah. And obviously Tokyo has a sort of a special place in the market, but I think it's more than that necessarily. I think what they're realizing is that the market for Disneyland and the market for Disney World are very different. And while at some point they would love Disneyland to be a Disney World style product, it's going to take quite a bit for it to get there. And I don't know that it ever will. And so you are essentially marketing to, West Coast, Rockies West, and high affinity Disney fans, and people who are going to LA for other reasons who, want to visit. So, whereas Disney World at this point is a pretty national park, has a little bit of international visitation, not as much as it used to for economic reasons, but I think when your intent to return, when your visits per year at Disneyland is probably like 6, and your visits per year at Disney World is 1 if you're lucky, it's a different kind of mechanism that draws people in. I also think having the floating mountains of Pandora is probably not realistic in the midst of Anaheim. And therefore, if you're not going to do that, don't do it. And don't do something different. Do something unique. Do something that has a massive show building, but isn't necessarily as wide and requires as much land, which is a little bit less abundant at Disneyland than it is in Florida. It's not breaking news there. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's so often I've heard, they would try and do something at Disneyland that worked at Disney World, and you'd be like, what are you doing?
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, you're even seeing it, in that even Lightning Lane is managed differently. They're trying to get, okay, this is not Disney World. This is not people here for a week. This is not people who, are just going to go on the attraction because it's there. These are people, you have more of a have and have nots at Disneyland, right? You have the attractions everyone wants to do, but the smaller stuff, the Muppet Visions of the world, don't do as well there because people have, it's not something you're going to do every week. Mm-hmm. Whereas, Pirates Haunted Mansion have become those kinds of attractions. Space, Matterhorn,
even. You got to write every week so you can quote it and ruin it for other people.
Right. So that was actually my highlight of my week, was going on Haunted Mansion without having it ruined. So
By the way, the West Side project reopens to some of that reopens tomorrow, right? The canoes. I know that the Hungry Bear barbecue sign is up, so
Yeah, I think part of the restaurant opens, but like the walkway, but not necessarily the restaurant itself.
Yeah, things like that. So it'll be fun to see the evolution of the West Side continue. It's going to become Bayou Country when Tiana's opens up over there.
I didn't get to go to the...
Can we talk about that for a minute? They sort of like, yeah, we're just changing queer country, by the way. I don't, pay no attention. Winnie the Pooh, totally part of the Bayou. Let's just go.
Darren Criss gave the news in a song.
Yes.
And I don't think that Critter Country was a name that couldn't work, because there's so many critters involved in Tianu's Bayou Adventure. Like
they all got
Bayou
cut.
Country,
we don't know.
I mean, Bayou Country works, but did they have to change the name?
Mary coming in. She's very excited, apparently, about Agatha all along, because it's coming September 18th. Yeah, that was one of the highlights of the studio's presentation, was the song. They also had a bus. They had a big bus that was Agatha all along, that they put a lot of these like influencers in and took them to the Honda Center in that bus.
They didn't call it Agatha All Aboard. I don't know why.
and then that bus was outside the convention center throughout the rest of the week as like a photo op, and they had spooky trees and all that kind of good stuff. So lots of excitement about Agatha.
And the trailer looks fantastic.
And at their booth, at the Marvel Studios booth, was really impressive. So they had it was like a TVA recreation, and there'd be these doors, like you see at the TVA, and one of them that you actually walk through was for Agatha, which I was really neat.
And we have photos and video of that. We'll have, I assume the team will put some links below for y'all to be able to check out, because we're talking about a lot of D23 content here. And if you haven't noticed, Laughing Place has been posting lots and lots and lots of videos from D23. We have that Jolly Holiday Richard Sherman tribute, right? That's up on the YouTube channel. I know we've even made it easy for you to see your favorite Disney legend. Those have been broken out into their individual speeches, so you can catch those. Yes, Mr. Ben.
I just want to, speaking of Jolly Holiday, I've gone to a lot of Disney events. I've seen Jodie Benson sing Part of Your World every 20 minutes, it feels like. And I say that as someone who, I've seen a lot of stuff.
To prove that he's jaded.
Yeah, I'm jaded. But seeing Haley Mills and Leslie Ann Warren sing Let's Get Together, something I've never seen, never thought I would see, and is the kind of surprises that you get at D23 that I didn't see that coming at all.
Yeah. For me, I know it's happened before, but for me, it was being in the room when Paige O'Hara and Susan Egan were singing from Beauty and the Beast together on stage. That was a great moment. Another great moment to have witnessed was, so the 5 of the princess voices came out to introduce Mark Henn when he was receiving his Disney Legend Award. And as Ben points out, Jodie Benson, the voice of Ariel. She's very accessible to the fans. And so when she started her portion of the speech, she was greeted with thunderous applause. But we see her all the time. So it was a nice, warm welcome. However, the next voice to speak was Ming-Na Wen. And this was her first time being in front of all of us during D23, at least as far as I knew it, I'm aware.
During this D23.
During this one, yeah. And there was like a concussive wave of applause and love that came at her, to the point where it took her breath away. And you could see her just in the moment. And she took a moment, and the applause just kept coming and coming. And then it was so cute. She kind of got herself a little bit together, and she looked around there and she goes, okay, that was cool. And then she proceeded with her speech. And it was just...
She shared that on her Instagram too. You can watch. So it looks like someone filming a backstage monitor of that.
Okay. Moment. It was so cool. Schnebs was there, said really fun event. Glad they got into the arena. I'm guessing studios.
Speaking of applause,
Lady Gaga.
No, Bob Iger got a rapturous standing ovation, which is a little bit different than what Bob Chapek got the year before, or the last D23, the last Expoliad or whatever.
This is the first D23.
Oh, I
Every
like-
other year it was a D23 Expo, so I don't know what you're referencing.
And to the point where he goes something to the effect of like, I was supposed to say thanks for a warm introduction, but wow, that was something.
Mhm.
And you know, it was because he got a bigger round of applause than Josh did. He got a bigger round of applause, and then I think he got the biggest round of applause of that whole studio showcase.
Nelson
and-
Peltz didn't stand up though.
Yeah. He was too busy eating at Wendy's with dynamic pricing. I think it was interesting because, you know, being in the weeds, you don't know how Bob is perceived, you know, on the second tour duty. In the investment community, it's been a rough go, partly just the entertainment business as a whole. And, you know, obviously you had the Peltz situation and, you know, they always say you can't go home again. But it was interesting. I thought that was fascinating. It wasn't just that he got a standing ovation. He got a major standing ovation.
Did they play an Elton John song for his walkout?
No, Kyle, what did they play? Because no, it's Alex who has made a point of sharing this because it's interesting. It's actually something from Belle's Enchanted Christmas or something that was his walkout music throughout D23. It's like, okay, that's interesting. Just a rather obscure part of the Disney Music Library apparently is what was Iger's.
Would Doobies be I Try or the DVC song?
Oh, that's difficult.
Oh, absolutely, the DVC song.
Yeah.
I will.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Ben.
Oh, so I also want to bring up something that wasn't mentioned at all during D23, because if you pull up Disney Plus right now and you're a Hulu subscriber and you have, you know, adult settings, you can't escape Alien Romulus being released. They have they have a Romulus sneak peek. They have the Alien trilogy or whatever it is, 12 movies it's been at this point. But there was no representation of face huggers, xenomorphs, or quite frankly, even Sigourney Weaver at D23.
Doobie, you can come sit in here if you're down the hall. You can come have a seat in here and join the chat for a bit too.
Speaking of Romulus, though, have I told you guys about the Springfield Renaissance?
No.
So
is that like the Harlem Renaissance?
Kind of. So Kaylee Spaney is the star of Alien Romulus, the #1 movie in the country. And she's from Springfield. She was born in Tennessee, but she grew up in Springfield. And then the biggest pop star in the world right now is Chappell Roan, who's from the Springfield area. She's about 20 minutes away, and she shot one of her music videos here. So yeah, we're just having a little Springfield, Missouri moment.
Magical time.
Can I share an inside LP story?
Please.
Okay, so Ben had the media access, which meant that he got to do a show floor preview. And one of the things on the show floor is this ivy covered wall where you can create the Homer meme and like disappear into the ivy. And the next day, I think it was, I'm walking by and I'm showing it to him and he's like, oh, I had no idea that's what that was. And now, of course, there's a big long queue in order to do it. And I'm like, oh, Ben, we could have been using that for forever. It could have been an LP thing. Every time we had something like that, we could have been showing Ben disappearing into the ivy.
They referenced that meme during James L. Brooks's, they had like The Simpsons do a video for him. And they, of course, referenced that.
Yeah, that was fun. And you could sit on the Simpsons couch. One of the things that I noticed this year with the show floor was that the big booths like Imagineering and Hulu and Marvel were more challenging to get into than years past. You'd have kind of an ebb and flow of queue. If you were somebody who, like me, was avoiding the big presentation, right? That's when there would be like the show floor would become nice and manageable. And you could get into those booths. And the FX booth, whatever that was, almost every time I walked past there, they had their little sign out saying, this line is at its maximum, and there were like people hovering around off on the side waiting for that to go down so they could leap into the queue as soon as it was reopened. So so that was interesting. And so one of the requests there's part of me, I understand the dynamics of the D23, why they do it the way they do it, but having the Imagineering presentation be such that there's one day where the full booth is available. Because what they do is they have parts of it that are covered up because they wait until the park's presentation to showcase it. And so you end up with people either wanting to go twice or not going and then all going on the last, it's just one of those weird things. And so that being such a popular booth to begin with, to really have only that one day fully accessible is rough.
Because that was really the only day that you had a hard time getting in, because it was the only day that there was something.
No, it was a queue. Whenever I walked past, it had a substantial queue.
Yeah, so I went by when it didn't. It doesn't mean that there wasn't, but definitely on that last day, it was hard to get into. And
why don't they just show it all and ask us to keep quiet? Like, don't tell anyone.
Well, but isn't the problem here that they announced nothing last time, so they have nothing to like. If they had some, like, next time they could show you stuff from these attractions they announced today and still have things that they're announcing the next day. Right. But if they had nothing else, they only had, a ride vehicle for Avengers.
Well, and this is one of the elements of it that I think I'm curious. There's part of me, I don't think this is a problem over with Imagineering, but some of them I felt like if the giveaway had been separate from the interaction, I'd have been fine, because I didn't want the item. I wanted the info, but I was having to battle the people who wanted the item. But I get it that it's in their best interest to entice you to their experience with the thing. But I was like, I don't want your pin. I just want to see the stuff.
I do think that part of, you're right, because I think some of the people, like, I don't know that anyone really was that excited about the Good Morning America desk, except they wanted the pin to complete their collection, which is smart. I think next year ESPN will participate.
That booth was a ghost town.
Easy to get into.
That booth, ESPN booth had an enormous footprint, and yet it was a ghost town to get into. It was celebrating Marvel cover. The past decade, ESPN has had this partnership where they would highlight football games, college football games, with Marvelized cover dynamics with it. And it was a booth that showed you the inspiration for various of the covers and then revealed the covers for this upcoming season, and then had SEC mascots highlighted in a Marvelized size. Now, first of all, I don't think a lot of SEC passionate people necessarily are going to be there at the D23 event. That's not really, but I was super thrilled because one of my favorite ESPN personalities happened to be at the booth. Ryan McGee, who I'm a big fan of. Thankfully, Benji introduced me to his Star Wars podcast that he does, Never Tell Me the Odds. And he was there being interviewed by Ashley Eckstein. And I got to, when they were finished, I said, "Hey, Ryan, I'm so glad to see you here. I love your podcast. Really enjoyed your recent Critter thing." And he said, "Oh, my producer's over there." And so then I went over and got to chit chat with his producer a little bit. And those kinds of just weird little moments that you end up having at D23, part of what, makes them super awesome. But I felt bad that ESPN booth was so empty the whole time.
It was completely intentional. I believe Disney probably makes all the business units participate. ESPN wanted to be able to go, look, we had 14 people over 3 days. Stop wasting your money and let us stop wasting our time. So.
Well, in hindsight, the RG3 exhibit was probably a mistake.
Call it D23.
I didn't get to go. Did any of you guys go to the Avatar booth?
Yes, that's the one I went to. Literally, the one booth I went to was Avatar, and it was fun. Cool stuff. You take pictures. There's little banshees there, and I'm glad I got to do it.
What do you think, Ben?
I didn't do it. That was the one. It was like the one big one I didn't do.
Yeah, I waited like 10 minutes. We waited like maybe 10, 15 minutes for it, which it was worth exactly 10 or 15 minutes. Yeah, it was what it was.
We were saying I'm like to think with the volume you could see it from a distance instead of having to like wait in line to just even see it.
That was smart.
That was the best booth, and I didn't do it. But watching the volume in action, wow, that was amazing. That was amazing.
And the fact that the way that the booth was designed was such that if you didn't invest the time to have that volume experience, like Mike Celestino did for Laughing Place, and you can see the results of that. But if you didn't take the time to invest, you still got an impression of what the volume is, and you got to see like the people walking up into the volume area. You could see the volume screen, and then you could see what the, you know, like on a TV, what their experience was going to look like to them. And so just it was almost like a magician trick to see people walk into there and then be standing there, and then all of a sudden you're like, whoa, it's like they're on another planet. It was for me, I don't know how it struck, but it hit me that way, like a magic trick.
Can I ask Juby a non D23 question for a second since she's here?
Yes.
Alien Romulus, what do you think?
Alien Romulus was a movie that was amazing. It was amazing. It was the most tense I've been in a theater that I can recall.
Loved it.
Not like a bunch of jump scares, a couple of jump scares, but not like that. Just, and not even suspense so much as just the empathy that you're putting yourself in that position of these characters is just so overwhelming. And I don't get like that in movies, and I love horror movies. This was a different kind of emotion, and it was great. And about halfway through, I'm like, this is good, but not as good as I was hoping. And usually movies like this taper off as it goes on, but this got better as it went on. And I loved it. I want to go see it again. It was spectacular. I'm a big fan of the first two. And I would say it's not quite up to that level, especially since it's not groundbreaking in the same way, but it is pretty close. It is worthy of being in the franchise, unlike some of the other Alien stuff we've had lately.
And
by the way, we see a lot of you sitting here in the chat. If you have any questions, feel free to throw them out here. Like I say, we have a lot of different perspectives because some of us were on the show floor, some of us were in the arena,
and some of us were Luke
helping with the news desk.
Some of us were at home.
You get any good trailers? Get any Disney trailers? Get any?
We did. I got Mufasa.
Oh,
say it again.
Huh?
Say it again.
Yeah, it was confusing to me. But I literally was not able to follow the trailer. Who's the orphan?
Mufasa.
Which one's Scar?
Scar's the brother to Mufasa.
I'm sorry, I did not get it. So, and then they look just alike. It doesn't help. So I was not able to follow that. I did get a trailer for Captain America. What is it? What's the next one? Dirty World. Yeah, that one. That was amazing. This is the first MCU movie I'm looking forward to in a long, long time. Mostly because it actually takes place on Earth, and I don't go for all this metaphysical, this cosmic stuff. But
yes, Alien Romulus, the famously Earth set movie.
But time out. It is set on Earth. It is set on an Earth. It does not have cosmic stuff like the MCU does. Don't even, Luke. I'm not going to let you. I'm not letting you get away with that.
He sat here quiet for 90 minutes, but
we went to see Deadpool Wolverine.
They're all human. It's all Earth-based people just living.
They're all humans.
Not the xenomorph, but the characters are human. They're not from other planets.
And that's why it's called humans.
There's no androids or anything.
Yeah.
What's wrong with me if I thought Doobie's shirt said Sphero instead of just Sphere?
Do I need to thank IAPA for this? No, you paid for it. We don't need to thank
Emporium was a lot smaller than previous years.
I'm okay with.
Yeah, and another inside LP. Every year we wonder and wait and see if they're going to continue to have an Emporium. Because I mean,
are we going to make the cut?
because I mean, frankly, it's one of those things where I'm surprised they do it. I'm thankful they do it. If they didn't do it, I totally understand why they didn't do it. But it's nice. It's a nice chance for all of us to kind of see each other.
So I want to tell a story. So I went to go see Deadpool Wolverine at the El Cap, and so we're there. We see the Captain America.
Are you just trying to make Rebecca cringe?
And then they showed the red. What?
He said you're trying to make me cringe. Deadpool Wolverine at El Cap. I'm okay. I'm over it. Go ahead.
And so then they showed the Red Band Alien Romulus trailer, right?
What? No, that makes sense.
I mean, it was,
I looked away the entire time when it showed it at Alamo.
And then we're like, what's going to be next? And I joke with Alex, oh, it's going to be Mufasa, the Lion King. And I kid you not, we went from the Alien Red Band trailer to Mufasa.
It was funny.
It's like,
And I saw it in IMAX, so like they're not. I guess IMAX they don't show this normal trailer. So we had Mufasa, which just cracked me up, and then Brave New World, and then we had a Nat Geo documentary about people who base jump.
Yeah, which is rated R, by the way, based on language and nudity. I found out.
Yes, it said that right there, and I'm guessing that was there because it's going to be an IMAX. I don't know why else you would show that. So yeah, the trailer collection was interesting, but Mufasa, I don't get it. I'm going to have to rewatch that with some paper and pencil or something.
Speaking of Nat Geo, Benji, did you get to experience the Nat Geo show floor experience? Because I didn't get over to it, but it looked amazing.
Yeah, I did. The Hexadome, which was basically a circle vision with one less screen. And it was kind of bittersweet for me. So Chris Albert, who ran marketing or is running marketing for National Geographic, is leaving in a couple weeks. And the Hexadome just used footage from a bunch of recent Nat Geo projects. And it was kind of bittersweet to be standing there with him and like reliving these memories of like, oh, I remember when, we had the premiere for Queens. I remember when we did this, that, the other thing. And, and he's there and he's so proud of this. He's like, this is my swan song. And so it was neat. It was neat to, you never know what Disney fans are going to resonate, are going to be willing to put up with, in terms of waiting. And obviously they didn't want to wait for ESPN, but to see, and Nat Geo is kind of in that, tangentially affiliated thing. So it was nice to see that it was popular. There's typically a wait, not significant, but, a wait long enough that, you had to put some level of investment into it. So, it felt very Disney, very, and the Marvel experience too, the Marvel Studios TVA experience. It felt like, this isn't a Comic-Con booth. Some of the booths felt like, okay, they could have been at the Comic-Con, at Comic-Con, and, they just moved them over here. Whereas those felt like experiences, sort of that were elevated beyond your typical con.
Was TVA not at Comic-Con?
No, at Comic-Con, Marvel Studios booth was basically just a big screen with some costumes in the on the periphery. So their booth at D23 was much more elaborate and larger, which is probably the reason why you didn't have it at Comic-Con. I don't think they had the ability to take up that much space at Comic-Con. But yeah, it was a much different. I mean, because at Comic-Con they do shows and stuff and cosplay contests, which this was not a stage. This was an experience, a walkthrough experience. So,
so I want to ask a Deadpool question. Now, so at the parks panel, he was used to inject humor, and he did this by mocking recent failures and ongoing failures. And I heard from a lot of fans, and I saw a lot of fans say it made them feel heard. It didn't hit me that way, but I'm guessing that's just a matter of humor. How did it? I mean, I know you weren't there, Luke, but you saw the footage, you saw the event. How did Deadpool's interactions strike you as a Disney fan?
I would say it was probably the most entertaining part of the whole panel. I thought it was hilarious. When he said you're beginning to sound like a broken Yeti or something to that effect to Josh, I thought it was hilarious. I thought, yeah, it's they realize that these are things that the fans talk about, and these are things that, obviously, that's who you're talking to in this presentation. You're talking to the fans, and why not have a little fun with it? And at the same time, get to, promote a big movie that's clearly done very well for them.
I think too, it shows it shows that at least they know it's talked about. Like, they know that we know, and not that they shouldn't, but sometimes in Disney's history, it's like, do you have any idea of what fans talk about? And, maybe it's just because I've been around long enough to where they were completely clueless.
Yeah.
And they seem to, I don't think they fully get the fan perspective, and I don't know if they ever really could. but at least they know that the broken Yeti is a topic of frustration, and you don't feel like it's the fact that they know it and it's not fixed, at least says something else. But it's even the Phantasmic Dragon getting on fire, catching on fire, or Spider-Man crashing into a wall. We're in the past, Disney was so protective that they wouldn't acknowledge these mistakes or these challenges. So it's a pivot that I think is in these times. I mean, I get why they did it back then, but in these times when we know everything that's going on, at least in that way, to pretend it's not out there is just silly. So it's nice to them it's nice to me to know, okay, the Yeti is broken. They know it's broken. They know we mock the fact that it's broken. Now I know that they've tried to fix it, and it's not the simplest thing to do, but I think it's nice to see humility.
And as Ben kind of references in his review of the Horizons Disney Experiences showcase that I shared, there's also a parallel between Deadpool's kind of role at this panel as he is in the movie, where people are talking about how that movie pokes fun at recent Marvel and some of their things that they've done wrong and how things have gotten off the rails, and how now having him point those things out is helping ground it and put it back on the track. So it's I find it kind of having like a similar situation.
I think it's funny, and there's nothing negative about it. It's funny. You're supposed to poke fun at yourself, yada, yada, yada. I'm glad they did it. The whole Phil Hurd thing, I mean, I had no doubt that Disney knows that fans are upset that the Yeti's not working. They'd have to be, I think they're better at their jobs than to be completely ignorant of that. But the thing that does bother me about it is, and bother's not the right word, but I was like, yeah, the Yeti's broken. How frustrating. Oh, Disney's making fun of it. Okay, that's kind of funny. Yeah, they know about it. But nothing's going to get done. And in a way, that's almost, it's a little tiny bit just like sorry, guys, here's a poke, There's a tinge of negative to it for me in that way. Like, we know this happened, we know this happened, we know this is going on, we know this is going on, we're acknowledging, we're making fun of it, and nothing's going to change.
Yeah, but I think, I think it's different. If it was something believe me, if it was feasible for them to fix the Yeti, I truly believe they would fix the Yeti.
I don't doubt that. I'm not saying they're being lazy or cheap or anything. I'm just saying that's how a little bit. It's overall still a positive to do it, but a little bit of, and this is all you're going to get as a result.
No, and I will say too that part of me is like, oh yeah, well, it's a shame that it's funny, but yeah, that Yeti's still broken. That's right. That's sad. The bottom line. Or and I still miss the dragon at Phantasmic. That's kind of sad. But
at least there we know they're so many of them are things we know that they're working on or have repaired or fixed or whatever. I just found it interesting where they went and where they didn't go, and that's all.
And did he make any reference to Chapek? Because that would have been really funny.
Don't think he did.
See,
that would be punching down.
That's the easy one to leave out. Come on.
So at first, when they brought back the Patrick video and the guy sitting there, I was like, he kind of resembles Bob Chapek at this point. I was like, is that a Chapek dig? And I was like, oh no, it's just the same guy.
It's just the guy.
Which is a better bit, by the way, having the real guy reprise his role or getting Jason Alexander to do it, because a lot of people just think that the original is
that would have been fun. I have a real question. Well, semi-real question. Bob Chapek spent a long time with Disney other than his 6.5 minutes as CEO. Do you think he watched any part of D23?
Well, they didn't stream anything.
I'm sure he knew many of the legends.
I think he still has his roster access or access, so he can watch the stream.
It's all on YouTube, obviously, if you wanted to see it. I'm sure he knew some of the legends and work. Do you think he watched anything?
No.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think he did.
Because
you don't think he stalks his Facebook at night?
I think I think it would hurt. Yeah. I don't think he is that callous where he is. Just curious and would hate watch. I just don't.
So what was your favorite? You were at the show booth most of the time, but you've also seen the coverage and everything kind of coming away from D23. What's your
I mean, outside the show booth, it was sitting. Well, it was a long. I started sitting in my hotel room, but then I remembered the presentation was so long. First, we were sitting in my hotel room. Then we went to get pizza, and then we were back sitting in my hotel room with Gideon during the park presentation. It was kind of special just to be with me and my son, having no idea what was coming. Rebecca wasn't there. I mean, she was there, but not with us. So just for me and my son to have that moment of boom, 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 and we're just like, what the heck? That was quite a memory. That was pretty special.
I have an important question, follow up.
Okay.
How many pizzas did you eat at D23? Because anytime I saw you eat, it was pizza.
So Gideon has a very small
Narrow.
palate,
narrow
and so
palate?
we had pizza in the room, and whenever we went for lunch at the booth, we also got pizza. So it's a safe one. It's a safe one. Anything else? Maybe he'll like it. Maybe he won't.
Yeah.
So that was my non-booth highlight. I think the highlight at the booth. I mean, obviously, it's always about meeting everyone, but individual. Seeing offhand Disney and have him praise the site was pretty awesome because we're big fans of his. Gideon meeting
Mouska Gamer.
You know, this little kid comes up. Kid, he's 23. Comes over. We're talking and. I'm going to ask him a trivia question. Oh, do you like current or past? Let's go with current because I built Disneyland in Minecraft. And then, oh yeah, so does my son. And then Gideon all of a sudden making a connection, and that was really cool. He's a big fan of Mousy Gamer, so getting to meet him was great. But the other would be Josh DeMauro coming to see us twice. Once when I just waved to him across the room, and he makes a beeline over, and that was cool.
He signed our banner.
He looked like this was before the presentation. I swear, I don't think he said a word. He looked like deer in the headlights. It was weird, but he was very kind. I mean, kind enough to come over. And then the day after the presentation, when he came over, and what did he say, Kyle?
It was, how about that, huh?
How about that, huh? That was a moment. And,
He had a very different demeanor when he came back, right?
He knew it. He's walking around like the king of the world, and he knew.
Dewey, I'd like to thank you for seeing Alien Romulus, because we just got this stat from the Walt Disney Studios.
Yes.
The Walt Disney Studios has accounted for 42% of the domestic box office this summer.
Wow.
And had the #1 spot 8 out of the 16 weekends.
That's amazing.
Now, so
Inside Out 2, Deadpool, Wolverine, Alien, Romulus.
Is Romulus #1? I was surprised at how crowded the theater wasn't. It wasn't empty by any stretch, but I was really hoping for more. Is Alien? Did it have a good opening weekend?
It is considered to have a good. I mean, for what it was, it's
#1 and 2 at the box office this weekend.
Alien Romulus is #1 and 2.
Over 100, that'd be nice.
I didn't do that.
Deadpool and Wolverine is #2.
Oh, okay. So yeah, so how about that? He was definitely walking around like he owned the place, like he knows he's the king. And then of course, the next day they announced Rivers are closing, and that all goes away. But for that one moment, for that one day, he was the king of the world.
Why didn't you tell us?
It was funny.
Tell me about the place I haven't gone to in 30 years. I can't go too soon.
The Washington Post asked to talk to me after the parks presentation. And so I talked to them, and they didn't use this, but I was like, well, everyone's happy now, but wait till Monday when they start announcing what's closing.
Yeah.
And that came to be.
What do you think, Luke? What are your we know Benji's thoughts because Benji wrote about it in a very thoughtful piece. If you haven't read Benji's piece on what the announcement of regarding Rivers of America means to him, I'm sure Kyle can put it in the chat at some point.
Real quick.
Kyle, what?
Schnabs, I'm just now seeing your comment. Exactly. Okay, go on.
But Luke.
So yeah, I mean, I actually went over there maybe like 2 weeks ago. And that was probably my first time in 3 or 4 years. It's an enjoyable experience. I don't think I'm gonna miss the actual elements more than I'm gonna miss the view. But from that point, I think the concept art that they've shown looks like a pretty beautiful area, and it looks like it will hopefully include some nice thematic elements, some nice water, trees. So if it ends up looking anything like the concept art, then I think I'm going to be okay. Now, if the rumors about Muppets come to pass, about that being the location for the Monsters Inc. coaster, that one I'll be a little bit more upset about. Also because that makes a little less sense than the Rivers of America. I can understand, as much as I may enjoy any element of the Rivers of America, it makes complete sense to me why they would get rid of it. Muppets, a little less so.
So let me address the Muppets issue. So I know it looks like that's not where it should go, but the Muppets actually underground connect to Bay Lake, and the upkeep for that is clearly really expensive. And so it's just a matter of time before they have to close it, and this is just the right time.
Regarding Rivers of America, you bring up a point that I wanted to ask you guys if this is what you found with your peer group, because I have found
this is my peer group.
that when I know, but I think we all know people beyond the people in this
not so
picture.
sure.
Well, okay, I do.
Okay.
And I feel like the parks
Humble
presentation landed with a lot of Disney fans kind of arms crossed, like in a little bit of a defensive position. Like, I want to like it, but I remember what the Epcot Center transformation artwork looked like versus what I got, and I remember what New Fantasyland look like versus what I got. And
well, I think
Fantasyland looks better than the concept art.
it depends on what you wanted out of New Fantasyland. I wanted kinetic energy, and you didn't get it. So, but
I think we actually got more than was originally planned, because I think you get more kinetic energy.
Yes.
You get more kinetic energy out of a coaster than you do out of Princess Meet and Greets.
No, I agreed with that. But once the artwork was there for Minecraft, not Minecraft, but the Mine Coaster, I feel like people I expected the coaster to be a bit more visible, so therefore adding kind of an energy to the park. It's not as visible as I expected, but I feel like a lot of my friends, when I've talked to them, they've especially brought up Epcot, Communicore, the 2-level, all that. And so I think there's a skepticism.
Pandemic.
I think the fact that was a project that got derailed so much because of a global pandemic, versus, obviously, something like that could happen, but it's very unlikely. And I don't think that there's going to be a global situation that will put Disney in a position where they have to rethink things so drastically like that. So I don't think Epcot's is necessarily a fair comparison. I agree that it's a very big disappointment from what was promised as to what we got, but I don't know if that's a fair comparison for where things are going to go.
Okay.
What about Galaxy's
I'd like to hope, at least.
Some of the stuff that got
Galaxy's Edge, that's the other one too. Go ahead.
What got cut from Galaxy's Edge?
I'm not riding elephants.
Bantha
There aren't droids roaming the park, roaming the land.
Well, okay,
there
yeah.
now, but there weren't forever.
Yeah, I think that's more of a testament to Disney needing to think operationally before they release concept art.
And going back to 1998, the Observatron, but that's beside the point.
No. But I think even Tiata, where they announced concept art for an attraction before they actually designed it. Yeah.
We're standing on a canoe.
Yeah. By the way, Kiki and Luca, you are so right. Those two dudes who came out and performed those musical numbers, I'll throw back to musical variety shows.
Darren Criss and Skylar Aston.
Yes, I loved that. I wanted
My
more
former
of
coworker, Darren Criss.
that. That's right, your coworker, Darren Criss. I loved that so much. Did you guys enjoy those?
I did. I really thought that and I heard it was harder to hear. It's like in our video, it sounds fine. In the room, apparently people didn't catch all the jokes because it was just a little hard to catch them. But I thought the announcement song was a fun concept, even if you might be like, why are they dropping this news like this? I liked the idea of it. And even I watched the video again, just the way that they came. I didn't even realize that they came out in street clothes the first time and then kind of separated and had tails and stuff. That was just really clever and kind of unnecessary in a good way.
To put in a to-do list, I think we need to post the lyrics to their songs, because the lines that get stepped over with laughter, and I think it would be helpful to read it.
Yeah, in retrospect, I was like, I wish I would have filmed the teleprompter. because I watched them, and where we were seated, I could look to my right and see the stage, and look to my left and see the prompter that everybody was reading, and that was fun because you could see when people totally left it. Like James Cameron, he must have read like the first two sentences, and
He
then
didn't follow Miley's advice.
and then it was totally done. But I was able to read the lyrics of the song, which made it so much easier for me to follow in the arena. Random persons coming in and saying, "Hey," Swifty 13 saying, "Slay."
But you're being rude.
No.
Your name is random person.
I don't know why Duo is threatening me, but that's okay.
So, but yeah, I enjoyed the energy. Oh, to go back to the dynamic that my husband and son were someplace different than me, I thought I'd share this with you guys for a moment because it's kind of funny. While Martha Blanding was getting her Disney Legend Award, because Doobie and I share a Google photo, I can see what my son and husband were doing at that moment.
What were we doing?
Holding a Disney Legend
that's
Award.
funny.
Because Matt McKim brought his father's Legend Award and let Doobie and Gideon hold it. So I thought that was really a fun little
I feel like
dynamic.
I'm eligible. It's kind of, the
No, you are in no way.
the first provincial.
No.
It's not out of the realm.
Someday I'm going to tell my holding legend story, but that's a whole other thing.
Okay.
The people behind me, when on the parks presentation, so it starts with like John Stamos coming out, and they're like, I can't believe John Stamos is here, and I was like, really?
I was weeping. I was not the only one weeping, but I was weeping when Stamos appeared out on stage like that. Oh my goodness, that was totally Uncle Jesse. Oh, it was such a good moment.
So at the Sherman Brothers thing, he came out to a Monkey's Uncle, which was a nice little like Beach Boy Sherman kind of nod, and then he was weeping like a baby.
I bet.
And then he performed with Darren Criss.
Yeah, is there like a ceremony where he's going to bestow the Disney fandom to Darren Criss? Like, is he going to will the Disneyland sign to Darren Criss?
Let me ask you a question, Benji, because you know things. At least you say you do.
I don't.
The vibes we all get from all this cool stuff. Why does Disney not? They do a stupid live stream every now and then to show the electrical parade. Why do they not do a D23 live stream? I don't mean streaming the panels. That's, whatever. But just the zeitgeist. Just let the world enjoy the feeling that the people in the building are getting.
Well, last year they did stream, right? I don't know
They
why
didn't have like a central show kind of like Celebration does.
Not
that's
just,
what they did last year. Last year there was like a whole live stream, like 9 to 5 kind of live stream thing.
Do it. Why would
I don't know why they didn't do it this year. It may just be, the leaner, meaner Disney that just didn't have a team to put it on, budgetary stuff. But yeah, I mean, I think, Disney, it should have been streaming on Disney Plus, or, I understand that there's music rights issues and all that stuff, but have ABC News Live do it so you don't even have to deal with rights issues, and just
one of the show floor things that I really enjoyed, they did it periodically throughout the event, and it was over on the Spotlight stage, which is always the venue like this that they've had each D23 is my favorite place in D23. And what they did that you're looking at here is the gentleman in the baseball cap right here. This is Broadway choreographer Matt West. And on stage here is a Broadway performer whose name is escaping me in the moment. I apologize. But then all these other people you see, these are just D23 attendees who showed up and over the course of an hour learned the opening number Bell, and then they performed it, and they got to have this interaction with this legendary choreographer and these Broadway performers. And it was just cool. My favorite moment in that was when people were singing, along with it. And at one moment he gave one of the gals the active mic, and she was singing. She just continued singing as if she was, and then she paused and she realized the voice stopped, and she goes, "Wait, that was my voice." And it was just one of those, it was just so cool to see that.
Yeah, it's every single time it saddens me that most people seem to think of D23 as the big presentations,
Honda Center.
and the specialness of D23 is moments like this and the floor and running into an ESPN guy who you see. I mean, if you just walk that floor all day, you're going to see so many celebrities, people that you just, I can't believe I'm having a conversation with this person. And
I had a conversation with Leonard Maltin about Bluey.
Oh, that's
Exactly.
awesome.
Of all
That is
things.
so cool.
You did? I didn't
Yeah,
even know
because
that.
so Jessie Maltin, she's talked to the site a few times, so she's familiar. So I see her, I say hi, and her daughter, I think it's her
Daisy.
daughter, had a Bluey toy. So we were talking about that, and so then when Leonard came up, I was saying something about Bluey. He's like, "Oh yeah, we love it."
Oh, that's
saying, "Oh yeah, Jessie and they all watch it so often that they can quote all the dialogue from all the episodes."
That is cool. Those are the moments, and I'm always sad that people are missing out on those moments because they're so intent in being in the room.
But I think too the Honda Center helped with that. I think
Yes, yeah, for sure.
because you didn't have to wait your whole day to get into it. You had your seat. So yeah. I mean, you're not there at 7:00 at night, but you had all day till about 5 to live D23 show floor, smaller presentations, bathroom
What it looked like-
conversations.
What
all
it
those
looked like
things.
we're doing was waiting in line for Abbott Elementary and FX and all that.
And like even things like Anika Noni Rose was doing a book signing. And obviously there's a limited number of people who are able to have that moment, to have that book signing. But I just walked past and happened to be there during her signing. And it wasn't like they had her off in some, corner where only the people who, had been able to get that reservation could get this nice picture. I have this nice picture of Anika Noni Rose.
I saw the Lorcana guys.
because
That's
of
even bigger in the same way.
So similarly, I saw Raven Simone, and I also saw David Henry because of the Wizards of Waverly, Beyond Wizards of Waverly coming, and things like that. I love how open they're able to have it be, even with the demand. I mean, I found people to be very considerate and respectful of that dynamic, where there were the people in the queue who were having their moment, but yet they kind of let us eavesdrop in a way off to the side, and in such a way that we weren't in the way of flows of traffic, or I felt they do a good job, like with the volume thing. When Manny Jacinto was there and in the volume doing the interview, it was like the number of people around that booth was exponentially greater, and they had to like keep it going, they had to tell you keep it moving, because people wanted to stop and look at him, because that's how open the booth was you could see it from the walkway, and they need that to stay a walkway. But I was able to see him as I walked by, so I got my own eyes on Manny while he was there, and without having to queue up or anything. And that was enough for me just to kind of be like, okay, there he is, that's what he looks like in person. I'm good.
Yeah, and hotel picking, depending on where you're staying, if you hang it out the valet at your hotel, you can have, or even just.
I have friends that every D23 they go hang out in the lobby of the Grand Californian after the big events.
Yep,
for sure.
We were not the Disney hotel, but we were at a different hotel, and in the elevator. And one of the weirdest things was this stylist complaining about the entourage of her talent as we're going up. And just, it was the most sort of Hollywood thing you can think of.
Hey, I was staying at Hotel Lulu, which is not exactly, for the Grand Californian, and I walked to the convention by the CEO of Rock Love. So.
Oh.
My dog is howling because it's her dinner time.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Hi, Rigby. Did she adjust with daylight savings time?
And we'll see. So we're at the double whammy right now because Becca went to go do something, and it's her dinner time, so she's just not happy.
Beside herself. What's she gonna do?
I don't know.
But I should say, we had a great time at D23. I'm sure we'll talk about D23 for eons until the next D23. But the fun doesn't stop. This week, as Rebecca alluded to, we have the first reopening of Bayou Country with the Davy Crockett Explorers canoes and the walkway from Galaxy's Edge to Bayou Country and versa versa.
I don't think it's called Bayou Country yet. If you look at no, in all seriousness,
No, I think you're right, but I think
in all seriousness, I think the Disneyland website says with the opening of Tiana's will become.
That's what's really confusing about Disney Adventure World right now, and trying to figure out how to say it. Be like, yes, Frozen will open at Disney Adventure World,
That's so weird.
currently under construction at Walt Disney Studios Park.
That is accurate.
yeah, I think you are right, but I also think once that
okay.
land reopens, it'll be Bayou Country. So
Okay.
yeah. And then on Friday we get the start of Halloween time at the Disneyland Resort.
Wow.
So, and all of whatever that ends up being.
Yep.
And if you think that's early, it's already happening at Disney World.
Yeah,
And they made fun of themselves.
Halloween at Disney World kind of got stepped on by D23.
Right.
Kinda.
That
Mickey
was a
has new outfit.
silly night to start it.
Yep.
And then we have a lot happening the week after, and then the week after, and the week after. We just can't tell you what it is yet. But Disney's not slowing down. So,
What do we have tomorrow, Kyle?
Tomorrow, if you are a member of this channel or would like to become one within the next 12 hours or so to 18 hours, we are doing a special members-only Return of the Morning Show. We will eventually get back. The goal is to do morning shows, and they'll be available to everyone. But tomorrow, tentatively 10 a.m. Pacific, we'll be doing a members-only morning show talking about all of the latest Disney news and whatever frivolity we get into.
Yay.
Maybe even a special playing of the DVC song.
I mean, we don't have to worry about demonetization anymore.
And for those of you who are unaware, we've added a ability to be a member here to offer a little bit of monetary support directly to the Laughing Place YouTube channel. You get some fun emojis, a little bit of additional access. We've got a Discord now, so we're beginning to kind of move into that community dynamic around here at Laughing Place, and are excited for what that will bring.
And music.
I know they're gonna have Southern. Yeah, they're gonna. It's all Cajun. There you go. All gonna be Cajun.
it's not like they had British accents to begin with. This is be a pretty clear.
Oh,
Bother.
it was a lot. It was a lot of fun. I came out of this D23 exhausted, but in a good way. Excited. Overall, I was very nervous going in. Because of the dynamics of the recent Hulu marketing that had happened and the addition of Deadpool, I was worried about Disney kind of watering down how interesting they were going to be to me as far as a brand entity. Because part of what attracted me to Disney in many ways was it's more, I don't want to say conservative because that has like a political connotation, but I mean, just like they didn't tend to be the ones really pushing that front edge of the envelope when it came to language or sexuality or any of those ideas. They were way kind of bland, vanilla, historically. And like I say, with the addition of Hulu and Deadpool in the parks, I was kind of worried if I would not be the audience. So I didn't go to the studio's presentation for two reasons. First, number one, it was up against the Princess concert, which I'm far more interested in than seeing trailers I'm probably going to see anyway. And secondly, I didn't want to be in the room if they were going to hit me in the face with face huggers, to be frank. And they had done enough in recent days, including Bruce Vaughn of WDI dropping curse word in a presentation to the press, that had me kind of questioning what they saw as the line for their brand. So I was like, I'm just going to go to the Princess concert where I know it's going to be all princessy and Disney, and I'm going to just be safe over there and see. And like I say, I've come out of this feeling like they have a much better perception of what people expect of the Disney brand. I'm fine with you becoming a big, huge company and having Deadpool, but kind of Disneyfied Deadpool within Disney. I understand that. It's fine. I don't want the brand to not, I don't want the company to not grow, but I'm thankful that I left this feeling like they still understand there's a consumer that has a certain expectation when it comes to Disney.
Imagine if tomorrow would come over and said, "How about that S word, huh?"
It's just different. It's you know.
I want to give a shout out to Alex because Disney Consumer Products decided to have a press event the Monday after D23, and if that must have been a struggle because it's like when I worked at the park, nothing good happened at Disney World on New Year's Day because we all were just so burnt from New Year's Eve that we all worked like 2 hours. And park wasn't probably running on all thrusters. It didn't need to because the guests were all wiped too. But like having to summon up the strength to go through those hoops that you have to do at these events the day after for 3 days, following a week of D23 festivities. Kudos to him.
Wow.
It was he worked a lot harder than I did the following 3 days.
Ugh, okay. Whew. I'm looking forward to Princess Week ahead. Woohoo!
Yep, we're T-minus 1 week until World Princess Week.
Yay! A wonderful time of year. I like princesses.
Me too.
Anything else, you guys? Ben, you have anything else you want to make sure we
No, I'm
share?
just checking my phone. Apparently, I have a free Domino's pizza waiting for me, so it's good to know.
Okay.
Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, no, that works. That works. So we're gonna do this again in 2 years.
Inside LP.
We're gonna do this again in 2 years, I guess, right? Maybe.
Well,
I'm waiting.
what can I say?
In November, we're gonna be doing this in from Brazil, right? Is that what's happening? I don't mean LP literally ourselves. I mean D23 from Brazil and.
Yep, D23 will be in Brazil for the first South American.
That's exciting.
And then you never know what's going to happen next year at D20 at the D. There won't be another D23 in Anaheim Ultimate Disney Fan event, but typically they've done Destination D events in Florida, and you don't know what kind of shape those will take in the coming year. So, given the growth of the organization.
Yeah, so lots of exciting stuff ahead, and then Star Wars Celebration, that's ahead as well. I kind of missed a more prevalent Lucasfilm like panel.
Yes. And even you have the Disneyland version of Tiana's Bayou Adventure. Yep. You have the opening of the Disney Treasure.
Yep.
So, and then next year we have 2 ships coming with the Adventure and.
When's that nighttime parade coming to Magic Kingdom?
Yeah,
next summer.
Next summer?
Yeah, there's 8 things happening at Disney parks next year: 2 cruise ships, the nighttime parade, Walt Robot, 2 new lounges, and Test Track. Yep,
and we'll be discussing those on Disney Parks Talk Live. That's tomorrow at 4 p.m. Pacific. So our team that talks about Disney parks will be discussing the Disney parks announcements out of D23.
Did they cancel Jaws on Fire? Is it only 8, not 9?
Stop. Deep cut.
Good night, everybody.
Bye.
Take care, folks.
Did you?